NFL season is here, guys.
Yeah, there's
Get
a game in a
excited
week.
for it.
There's a
So
game in a
exciting.
week.
That's going to be a good game, too.
Who's playing?
It's the first.
The Broncos and the Blair told me it earlier. The Broncos and
Giants?
no, like someone else, Bears or something like that.
Well, either way, we'll all watch the first quarter and then go, yep, I still don't like preseason that much other than the first quarter.
Yep.
We don't need 18 weeks of football.
But we did have a bunch of last-minute trades happen hour before we decided to record tonight.
I didn't even know about them when I walked into the studio. Like, did you see the trades? I was like, what?
Everybody was texting me and going, "Oh my, I can't believe this is happening."
Broncos Falcons, by the way.
Okay. Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. But Dan made a killer trade. Dane made two killer
A lot of
trades,
big moves.
and Walsh made a killer trade. Everybody win out of all the trades. So
A lot of big moves.
I like them.
I was looking with Patrick Mahomes. Wentz is just, I really like Carson Wentz, but it's just not a piece I need, and I got to sell him.
Yeah. That was something that I noticed about your team is that you had those two guys. I mean, and Mahomes' value is insanely high. It'll probably retain its value for sure. And Wentz is another guy that's top tier to me.
Yeah,
he's young. He's got a cannon. Like, they're going to be good fantasy assets. And having two of them and not being able to start both of them, you're minimizing the points that you could get. So flipping them and getting a running back, especially in a league like this.
It was looking
Sick.
at Carson Wentz and going, which running backs or receivers am I okay parting with him for? I really like Carson Wentz. It was a short list. The receivers, I'm okay with my receivers, especially being in development, making a power play on somebody like Fournette, who I like a lot, was just a no-brainer. It happened pretty quickly,
So what was the total trade?
The trade is Carson Wentz, my third this upcoming year, and my first the year after, 2021.
So 2021 first.
I get Fournette.
And you get Fournette.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it on. It's interesting. I'm surprised that Dane made a move like this because he obviously just made a bunch of moves to, clear some space. He was clearing out everything and trying to win now.
He has a huge depth at running backs before the trade, so I can
Yes.
see he's dealing off
He
one of the
still
running
has
backs
okay
he might have
depth,
been a
if
little
I
low
remember
on,
right.
but he got like a startable quarterback for the next 15 years
And
or
his-
10
and his-
years. Maybe
his-
he's not Andrew Luck, but
On previous trades, his receiver depth had gone up, so that second flex spot could easily be a receiver now. So you carry three he's got easily three starter running backs.
Gurley, Barkley, Fournette's gone now, but he still has
Derrick Henry
Rashad
Chris
Penny.
Carson,
and Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry. Yeah, and
Rashad
Rashad Penny.
Yeah.
And he also, in the later trade that we'll talk about, he got LaShawn McCoy, who you never know.
So
And I think your trade with him was him transitioning from Fournette, making a trade to get Diggs.
I think so, too.
Which is
It
great.
gave
So
him-
he
gave
raised
him
the
more-
floor of his team.
yeah, and the other thing, it could have been him and Walsh working. He needed more capital, especially picks. My trade allowed him to get those picks for the capital because our trade happened fairly quickly, less than a day. Just I've talked to Dane in the past, but this one happened a lot quickly than any of our other trades that didn't happen. Went down.
Yeah, wow. These trades were literally, it seems like within 20, 30 minutes of each other, what he posted. So it sounds like he had a deal worked out.
Yes, I actually said to him, I was like, I'll tell Jim tonight. I'm seeing Jim in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Dan
And
was
he
planning on
was-
dealing for Dalvin Cook tonight.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I'll post it.
Yeah.
Because clearly he had to post it to get the pieces to make the other trade.
Oh, and he
so.
knew Walsh was, not exposed, but Walsh is obviously clearly clearing house
Rebuild.
to get some picks and send anything he can
And
away
that's
to get picks.
and that's a great trade too.
Yeah,
That's
and
a ton of capital. that
Yeah, and
Walsh
this
had.
next one was another move where Dane receives Matt Ryan, Stephon Diggs, who's the big piece in this trade, and LaShawn McCoy, and Walsh is getting a 2020 third from Dane, the 2021 first from Dane, and then your 2021 that you had just traded him, and then as well Mitch Trubisky and Matt Stafford, which are definitely important pieces too.
He goes into today with two quarterbacks and exits with two completely different quarterbacks.
So we could break down exactly what he traded away. So he's losing Leonard Fournette.
Mm-hmm.
He is losing Mitch Trubisky, Matt Stafford, and he's trading away his
First.
2021 first and he's receiving, because the other ones, those trades were moved over, and he's receiving Matt Ryan, Stephon Diggs, LaShawn McCoy,
And Carson Wentz.
So, yeah.
It's a lot of movement on one of, if not the best team in the league. So it'll be interesting
raised
to see
his
how-
floor significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Diggs. He's just turning that running back into Diggs, which is huge, and his quarterback.
If you look at it from Dane's perspective, he goes into the day not losing two of his starting running backs, improving his quarterback, and improving his receivers.
Yeah, it
Right.
just
It's moving Fournette for Diggs, kind of, and a lot of other shifting, and he had to give away first to do it as well. Which,
yeah.
I mean, I think in the end, if I had a point value, if I assign each player a point value, I'd say Dane lost on these trades personally. Yeah, he did get Stephon Diggs, but I think Fournette could have fetched a higher price than Stephon Diggs.
But
if
at
it was
the
a
same-
straight up and a first.
at the same time, he got his team to be. I mean, we were already loving his team prior
Exactly,
to these trades. Now it is. I mean, it's the peak. Right now, he's good for the next 2 years. The best by a significant margin.
Yeah, and like I said, if it was a points thing, I think he lost. But it seems like these trades are getting his guys. It
Yep.
sounds like
Yeah.
he's high on Wentz, he's high on Diggs. Those are the guys he wants. He's willing to pay for him to get him, and we'll see. And Dane being in leagues with him, he has a track record of having good valuation on guys
Players.
generally.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Last year, though, looking at a team that had Gurley, Saquon, Fournette, and Phillip Lindsay, most people would have rode those four for 10 years.
Yep.
It's good to see turnover on that team and trying something new. I mean, he hadn't won the league, so get new pieces in there. It's an active play. Hopefully, it'll work. I mean, I guess not. Hopefully, it'll work.
Yeah,
out. I hope it works.
And I
out
don't know
for
if
me,
since
but-
we last did, if we had the trade. I mean, he's also got Julio and AJ Green.
Yes.
which is an insane acquisition
For him
I
to
mean,
not win or be in the finals this year, there has to be a series
Yeah.
of atrocities occur for him.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I mean,
Being in his division, that would be okay. with me.
Even with two atrocities, I think he's still above
Yeah, it's
everybody
tough.
else's
I mean,
team.
even Gurley going down, he still has that
Yeah.
depth. So, yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. But it's fantasy football. You
and
never
like,
know.
and like we had said, it looks good for all three teams.
Yeah,
You
it's a
said
win-win across the board.
And Walsh is looking to clear house.
Walsh
That's
is
the way
looking to clear
trades
house
should
and
be.
build, and he did that.
You got a pair of firsts.
I'm
for
sitting
2021.
on.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on Carson Wentz with Patrick Mahomes. I got to part with that piece, so I
Yeah.
get that back.
It's a little risky with Mahomes like tearing his ACL just yesterday.
Yeah,
I mean, to
I was
just
surprised you
ride-
made that trade after Mahomes.
It's gonna be
his
punishing.
arm
He's
fell
like
off too.
he's
when he
like
fell.
superhuman though. He'll rebuild better.
That's
than
true. His
before.
arms
Yeah.
already growing back.
The $1 million Kermit.
Yeah, he'll totally throw 50 touchdowns again.
Yeah, and it was for 2 years now. It has been that whole conversation on my team. Is it Wentz or is it Mahomes?
Right.
I felt like last year I got clarity and had to just stick to that gun and just
Absolutely.
go. I can't sit on these guys for multiple years
offense-
and lose value.
That offense is so good. That offense is.
And with the inconsistency on how the NFL apparently suspends people or doesn't suspend people, apparently we're going to be fine in Kansas City.
Segue into that.
But looking at it, even if it pans out that Wentz is awesome, I had to make a decision, So that was a decision
makes
to be
sense.
made. And one of the things, the smaller aspects was I have Dallas Goedert coming up and Alshon Jeffrey still in my receiver. It's hard to play Wentz when you're potentially starting two of his targets. So I'm still rooting for Carson Wentz. I just don't need him on my team.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when you got two assets that are valuable assets, I mean, Carson Wentz fetched a price, obviously. So having two and just only being able to start one.
Yeah.
And you can't deal off Alshon right now. His value is too low relative to his production.
It was, yeah.
Probably, yeah.
I tried to move him last year and couldn't to Ross.
And
I'm okay keeping him. Now with Wentz not there, I'm okay keeping those other two Eagles players because I don't have to worry about trying to double or triple dip because I don't like doing that.
fair enough, yeah.
So the NFL decides to get disciplinary on their players or lack of.
Yeah.
I'm so baffled. I'm going to get real heated on this
Tyreek
one.
Hill
It makes
was the best value.
sense. It makes no sense what the NFL does.
It's hard to believe that they let Zeke go after he knocked over that guard. It's crazy. They didn't even suspend him for one game.
But man, Zeke, even other players, Tom Brady, this is going to
Didn't give me my cell phone 4 games.
No, yeah. Zeke, no proof. His crazy ex-girlfriend says
He's going to bury
he hurt
him.
me.
Yeah.
He said bad things to me. 6 games, a year long. The investigation took over a year, and he got 6. And we were told this is how things are done. Tyreek Hill, and even looking at other guys who got suspended for a year, AP told his son to go out and get a switch to hit him.
That was a year, pretty
much.
A
year. He got put on the commissioner's exempt list for a year. Tyreek Hill has texts and conversations of him threatening his wife and son. Nothing.
Yeah.
I think there's a change of ways that's happening with the NFL right now, and they haven't made it obvious to people. If some other information comes out, obviously the NFL is going to overreach as much as they can because they look terrible right now.
So far, every investigation that they've done wrong.
It's crazy.
It's been bad.
Remember even who was the Giants punter? And he retired.
Yeah.
And he had beaten his wife.
Maybe?
He got arrested. Not Bryant.
Brown?
The big guy. He was like jacked.
Yeah.
He was I
think it was a kicker. I don't know if
he was a
the
punter. He was a punter.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve Weatherford.
No, not Steve Weatherford.
It wasn't
not
Steve Weatherford?
That's the one that everyone likes. He's
okay.
okay.
He's a good
Is
guy.
his last name Brown?
I don't know. We know who I'm talking about.
Antonio, yes.
He was
AJ's saying it and muttering it under his breath right now.
He beat his wife. It happened right after.
Idiots.
It happened right after. It happened right after Ezekiel Elliott. He beat his wife. Like, he got arrested for it. He got 2 games, and he was retired at the time. He was, but it doesn't. From the optics perspective and the overall view, it doesn't matter if he's retired. Suspend him indefinitely then. And just let him be retired.
Josh Brown.
Brown. That was it.
I only had to say it 4 times.
Yeah. Not Steve Weatherford.
No, Steve Weatherford's a good guy.
Everyone loves
Sorry, Steve Weatherford. If you're listening, Steve Weatherford, I apologize. Retraction. But it was crazy. They went 2 games on a guy that openly apologized for beating his wife.
Yeah.
For 2 games. And I get that he's retired and a low-profile position. It doesn't matter. You still just suspend him indefinitely. Let him be retired, but he's not welcome back.
The NFL didn't, they claim that they did enough research on this, but they haven't gotten enough information from police and investigations.
They're not gonna get any.
I mean, once stuff gets released from, child services and all that stuff, they need to get that information to make a decision. And if you can't get it, then at least the perception, you still have to punish him for somewhat of the perception. How about tarnishing the shield?
Tarnishing the shield. They said that how many times during the Zeke thing, where if you put yourself in a position to look bad upon the game, if that matters. You will get suspended just based on the fact that you put yourself in that position. We were, as Dallas fans, we were told that a million times, that it's 6 games. We don't have any proof. Did anybody read any of the investigations? The Zeke investigation was comical. It had no proof. A year long, no proof. They basically said it didn't matter. He tarnished the shield. He put himself in this position. That's how did Tyreek not also put himself in this position?
And you guys are on the one side. I am also
devil's advocate.
Somewhat on that side, but playing devil's advocate. What if all this is true, where his girlfriend did make it up, did try and bury him, did all this? It's all
If that's true, still tarnish the shield because of the incident, whether it's true or not.
So something that you didn't do because someone tried to screw you, you're going to end up getting...
You were put in a bad situation.
By someone that you were with, not necessarily
This has happened in the past. People been in a bad situation and they got punished for it, even though they didn't do something.
It seems like a slippery slope.
But
exactly,
I agree with you. Then set a standard, and no matter what, stay to it. The problem is, like you said, if there's no proof, there is, in this one specifically, he's threatening his girlfriend and son. Like, he's saying it.
Part of that reporting was also taken out of context, from what I understand. I'm just giving a extra.
He threatened the girlfriend.
He said you two should be afraid of him.
No, it was that was directed to her. Yeah,
okay, but still, that's enough in my opinion to warrant. And he's not getting. That's one thing we're overlooking.
Yeah.
It's not that he got 2 games like Ray Rice and it wasn't enough. It's not that he got 6 and he didn't do anything. He got 0.
Yeah.
He got nothing.
Yeah. So my personal opinion, has changed a lot on what they should, what they shouldn't do. I had a conversation with someone when they were going, I think it was Zeke, just in general over the summer, maybe last summer. I think now that the NFL just needs to get out of the punishment game.
I agree.
They should not be being involved in this sort of stuff. And the only reason, and I thought it was great at first, obviously, these women beaters are coming around and stuff's popping up, and the NFL is just sitting back. And then when they get arrested, they're like, oh, okay, 2 games. And it's like, what? He beat, I think that they've showed that they are so inconsistent and just They too dysfunctional to handle an investigation that they just need to pull themselves away from it.
Here's my issue with it is they spent a ton of money the previous year with that whole advertising campaign about domestic violence.
Yep.
And then
they're gonna look like garbage. Now, no matter what.
Your public perception looks like complete garbage because you have an innocent incident, even though just the perception, not saying Tyreek did anything, but the perception, your actions for what you were trying to grandstand so virtuously about. Yeah. And then you look like cowards at the end of it.
There's so much that could work, Trev, like getting out of the punishment game.
I think they just have to.
I don't understand the idea or the concept of just not having, and like I said, I think you said it actually, it's a slippery slope where just set a single standard.
Yeah.
And that was what I thought we were told, that it was anything occurs, you tarnish the shield, any evidence whatsoever, it's 6.
Yeah.
It's 6.
Yeah.
And then from there it moves up or
12
or to a year.
I think it depends on the logo on the helmet though.
But so this is
like
another
if it's
thing.
A star or
this does matter, and that's a problem. It should be unbiased, but it's not. They're the most exciting team in the NFL to watch, correct? Tyreek Hill's one of the most exciting players.
Easily, yeah.
They want to make money.
Yeah. Check out that grill.
Keep him on the field. And that's a huge problem. Like and we were told 6 and now it's none, and you got to think, the first thing you think is, why is it none? If there's any evidence, even if it's audio, why is it none?
Well, and at what point is it on the team to step up? And the Chiefs have stepped up in the past for this when they cut Kareem Hunt.
And after getting this news, they're ready to trade him.
To trade
they're trying to trade Tyreek right now.
Really?
Yeah. Go get that value, guys.
The rumor
everything's
is that it's
good.
It's contract based, but this is another thing with when we were talking about evidence. Other incidences, whether it was Brady or Zeke or other players that got nothing, we're typically working on a no history, like this is the first time, right? Tyreek Hill has a history of this in college. So wouldn't you think that this would be an easy punishment to pass, even if it was 6 or 8 games? How is it 0? It's just, I don't get how it's
0. Doesn't make any sense.
To give counter argument to that though, also because I've done a little more research on it, not a ton, but just some reading on stuff. Back then in that incident, he supposedly, this is the story that I've heard, is he didn't have a lot of money, and at that time he needed to pay a significant amount of money for a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. This is the spiel. And instead just moved on with the case. But the incident still... Yep. Tarnishment did not get punished by the NFL. Yeah.
And that's a big thing with the NFL is that
they can't
if you're not an employee, like look at the Mixon thing, like Joe Mixon. Yeah. My dad always points out, Mixon didn't get, I was like, he wasn't an NFL employee at the time.
But haven't some other guys gotten punished coming into the league for stuff that happened before they were an NFL employee?
That was the Zeke thing, kind of. But the problem was, is it enough of it happened after the draft where technically he was an NFL employee?
Jameis, I don't know if he got suspended, but he had an ongoing investigation.
But the Cowboy and Zeke has the Cowboys.
It's so, and this is the thing is, it just and with all these moving parts and the slippery slope and this, just set a standard. Yeah. Just set a standard, and even if you didn't want it to be a moving scale, and it's like, unless there's indisputable proof, it's 6 games, the end. Just go for that. Yeah,
just set the standard.
It is not that. It's
follow
nothing.
It now. Follow this new standard, and then when the Pats try and cheat in some way in the next 5 years, make that your new standard of punishment.
It's crazy
what they're doing so far. Yeah.
Redraft's just about to hit, and these holdouts that are starting to happen now are putting a little fear into how we want to go about our drafts.
Moving some draft positions around for sure.
It's interesting. Last year with the Le'Veon one, you never thought you'd have higher profile single player, but this year with how many players? It seems like a bigger deal because there's so many.
Well, and this is the first. Last year was the first time that like a really big name player he held up for the entire season. I mean, we've seen a couple guys hold out for a couple games, and usually one of the sides ends up budging. But I mean, the fact that Bell sat out the entire year, that changed the game for the people that are holding out, and it changed the perception of people for fantasy being that fear. Because how many people? I mean, if you have a 12-person league, one of those people drafted Bell, and that they're never going to forget that.
And that's what people are thinking right now with Melvin Gordon.
Yep.
But what Bell did last year, the effect of what he was supposed to get.
Yeah. Did Le'Veon help any of these guys? It seemed like everyone preached last year how well he set a new standard. He let guys know they could do this. It didn't really work though, right? His contract is He signed with the Jets. He had trouble getting a ton of offers. He ends up with a 4-year, $52 million.
I think he only got offers from the Jets.
So
it seems like they're competing against themselves.
4 years, $52 million. Last year, this is not a stat. I think the idea was that he lost like $13 million or something like that over the season.
It was a lot. I think he ended up getting more guaranteed money out of the Jets, and I think that's in the end the number that matters.
Yeah, that's what he wanted.
It was over 40, I want to say.
Something like that.
He lost 13. I think it was 13 something last year.
Off the offer he got from Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And you look at somebody like Melvin Gordon on his rookie contract. I get that he wants a long-term deal. He is scheduled to make 5.5 this year. He hasn't made a ton yet. Every week he doesn't report in the offseason, he gives up $40,000.
Yeah, and I think it's...
And then once the season starts, it's a lot. And does he have that money? I just don't know how much... History has showed that these guys might not have the bargaining position they want, which is a shame because you want these guys to get long-term deals. But specifically the Chargers, it's tough to say I have all this value when you don't. Like,
I get where owners come from. They know they can get value in running backs second and third round and run them for 4 or 5 years. Wheels are mostly done. They've only got a couple more years left, so let's just move on. The problem is when you have a guy who is an elite running back, Melvin Gordon is an elite running back, you got to pay him. Why not just pay him right now? Get it done. Win your championship now or attempt to.
Yeah, you get into the situation where we don't know what he wants exactly. One of the sides, if we could see if it was completely transparent and we could see all the numbers, one of the sides is probably wrong. From the Chargers' perspective, they were, with him in, they were significantly more efficient. Yeah. But B and C, they have Austin Eckler, so they're fairly consistent without him.
Traded him away for
C,
now you're regretting it.
Including college, I think he's played one full season, Melvin Gordon. So it's tough to be like, I want to get paid all this money when you weren't available for us down the stretch last year. You weren't available your rookie year for the whole year. I agree.
It's tough. You pay for the elite players, though.
Agreed.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to is that the running backs have a raw deal.
Correct.
I mean, they really do. Like, it's the one position that the team can pick you up as a rookie. You're gonna fit right in, and they can burn those legs out. And the Giants are gonna do it with Saquon. Like,
they already did last year.
Yeah. And he's got 4 more years, and then a 5th-year option, and then they can tag him. Like, he could go through his entire career and never have a big season. He could run his legs out before he gets a big contract. The problem is that the collective bargaining agreement just has to be better for these running backs.
I agree.
That position specific.
I agree. I totally agree. I do think there is an aspect of the one place it benefits is we are talking about it's a raw deal for the upper echelon of running backs.
Yeah.
The middle echelon and lower echelons are gaining a huge amount because every team now, instead of carrying one elite running back, is carrying 2 to 3
the committee
running backs.
Yes.
So like I agree with you that these like you said, you pay your superstars. But there's other guys, like it's the whole like scab thing. So Melvin Gordon's getting traded, but that means that they're going to pay Austin Eckler a decent amount and another guy under him.
Right, and they can sign a guy in the offseason that is a middling guy. Yeah.
So I agree with you that the upper echelon of running backs get a raw deal, but you also have a ton of guys underneath them that are getting a better deal than they would have gotten in the old system where every team had 2 running backs and was running one 40 times a game and one a little bit.
True. I mean, you're not wrong, but the thing is the public perception is everything, as you can tell from our last segment. So these high-end guys, I mean, we're talking Ezekiel Elliott and Michael Thomas, who under a lot of people, that's the best running back and the best receiver that might be holding out because of this contract issue. So
there can also be kind of what you were saying before with the players committee, the agreements they're trying to go through with the NFL right now to still have a season next year.
Yeah. This
might be part of the effect of players needing to stand up now to have some leverage in negotiations for the players committee.
Yeah. I do totally agree that after the holdout, or not the holdout, after the collective bargaining agreement last time, when we thought we were going to lose a whole season, the players thought they got one over on the owners. Clearly not the case. No. They got hosed on that bargaining agreement. I do look at football as the sport where you take the most wear and tear, and the players just make a lot of money. Compared to other sports, they make peanuts.
It's like, insane.
It's crazy. It's insane. You look at the baseball this year. Baseball. I love baseball at full transparency. It is a dying sport. Yeah. 2 guys signed contracts for over $250 million in the offseason.
Yeah.
And like
more than that.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying because Bryce signed for 300 something, and Trout signed for that too.
So
it's just one of those things where you look at our players, the NFL players, and you go, why is the cap so low?
Yeah.
Why can't we pay these guys more? And the owners have had such a good deal for so long. That's the one area where I agree the players got a raw deal, but it needs a total overhaul. So the owners also aren't taking a bath.
I think what they should do is hold out for this next year. It would suck for all of us fantasy fans. But
XFL.
At the same time, XFL goes and they go, you don't want to pay your players appropriately? Guess what? We're going to do that. And then the NFL will have to compete and respect its players.
I totally think that would be great. As a fan, it would suck. They do need something where they overhaul the entire process. So something grandiose like that would happen. I think what was the other one that was just out? Not the XFL, the other one.
I forget FL.
They didn't finish their season. FL.
It proves that if you don't have elite players, it's not worth watching. So it gives them the bargain position, but you have to be willing to sacrifice that money for a year.
I think Vince should just go get that Clemson quarterback and just say, your rules you have with the NFL? Come here, play. You're going to get paid now, and you're going to get paid better than you would over there.
Trevor Lawrence.
It'd be interesting. It'd be
hilarious. It would screw over fantasy. Everybody who's been waiting
for it. But isn't that an NCAA thing too, though? That's beyond the NFL. He could lose his college eligibility.
Go get paid a ton of money.
I mean,
Jim is saying he's eligible. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's the system similar to the NCAA neneeds to be overhauled.
System.
What we were talking about in the last segment, it's the idea
that AJ's loving this episode.
There's no hardcore country though.
Hardcore country. We're off the rails. Sorry.
The optics mean too much in the NFL.
Yeah.
Baseball doesn't care how boring it is and still plays its players an ass.
Well, not on domestic violence. They don't really care about the perception now. But
I guess not.
That's the whole thing.
Their actions.
But it's the reverse of what I'm saying. Is that the optics,
I know I did.
It's worth too much, and the players need to throw that out and sit for a year, and let scabs do it. Let the guys underneath them get paid. It's not going to be good football.
To continue our team review in the league, we have next up James Adamus. It looks like he has some
came
strong
last place
pieces.
Last year, right?
Yes. Overall. Yes. So this is the start of the turnaround. What's going to happen from here? He got amazing piece in Jacobs.
Yes.
But let's start from the top. Let's go through QBs. We want to evaluate the team, whether we think he can turn this into a win now team, whether it's just falling short, whether it's still in a heavy rebuild, what we can do to try and make it into one of those. Each of ours, we might have different positions on this, which I think I have a slightly different position than you guys on it.
Yeah, definitely.
But let's start from the top. QBs. He has Dwayne Haskins, Jameis Winston, and Deshaun Watson.
Very good quarterback core. I mean, Deshaun Watson is ranked as a top 5 quarterback. Jameis Winston is this year is super hyped. I mean, that passing offense last year was unreal. They had so many touchdowns. They were probably second best. I mean, you probably got to put them behind the Chiefs. And that team, they lost a couple receivers, but they still should be passing. So Jameis Winston is a great quality kind of under the radar guy, and Deshaun Watson is in an awesome passing offense as well. So I think I think quarterbacks is probably the strongest part of his team.
Yeah, and then you have Dwayne Haskins, who you're going to sit on.
Yeah.
The only thing is, can you part with you have Dwayne Haskins in waiting.
Yeah.
Can you part with one of them to get a piece somewhere else?
Yeah, I think that's what I would do.
Yeah,
I would part with Jameis this year. It depends on Adamus. If he believes in Winston, I can see him holding on to him. But Deshaun Watson's what's going to make you win now or shortly, if that's your plan.
Yeah.
And Deshaun Watson's a mobile quarterback. We know the history of mobile quarterbacks. He might want to carry 3, knowing the injury track record of, if you think you're competing this year, keep 3 running. If you don't think Dwayne Haskins will be ready this year, you keep 3. That way, if he goes down, it doesn't interrupt you.
Right.
But yeah, quarterbacks is fine. It's great.
Moving on to running backs. I mean, his running back core, surprisingly for a team that came in last place to have this sort of, team. And part of it is the first guy on the list, Le'Veon Bell. He didn't play last year. There's a reason that he was in last place, is because Le'Veon Bell didn't play. And a lot of people were probably in leagues where they drafted in redraft with Le'Veon Bell and ended up in last place.
This is part of the blinding aspect with Adamus's team because he's not a true last place finisher. It was just the effects of injuries that led him to this, this spot.
And then we'll get onto it later. Hunter Henry was also on his team as well, and he was out for the season. So
he's got great age at running back, even with Le'Veon Bell being his main guy. He's still looking at some, Ronald Jones and Josh Jacobs coming up is very nice.
Yep. And Damian Williams, I mean, the heir apparent apparently in Kansas City, he's been declared as the top player, and every year for the past 3-5 years, ever since Andy Reid moved to Kansas City, that top running back in Kansas City has put up huge numbers in fantasy.
Then we have a couple other guys. We have Jalen Richard,
who I like this year.
He has Jacobs, so you need to own
the
Raiders backfield.
Yeah. Yep.
But then you have Jay Ajayi and Mike Weber.
I think the biggest issue at running back, and this will happen again at receiver, is the lack of depth. Like, you do have the upper echelon, and you need some guys to hit at the younger guys, but it does drop off a little bit.
Right. If Damian or Le'Veon Bell goes down and the Oakland's on bye, I mean, I end up starting Ronald Jones, who was not startable last year, and Jay Ajayi, who's not even on a team.
Yeah.
It's tough. And if you looked at this running back core last year, and it was, if they had like a rookie starting guy like that, and Damian Williams, if he had Kareem Hunt on his team instead of Damian Williams, like, you're looking at a very, very solid running back core.
Agreed. The hope is, if he does trust in his guys, Adamus has a track record of, in the draft, at least from my perspective, getting good guys that are his guys. You just have to have faith in younger players like Ronald Jones and Josh Jacobs getting, by the end of the year, getting to those starting positions,
right? Yeah.
And be pulling enough carries.
If Ronald Jones hits, this thing turns around real quick.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, it could, definitely.
Receiver would be the weakest.
Yeah, this is a little rough to look at. I mean, in half PPR and PPR leagues with 2 flexes and 2 receivers, I like to start 4 receivers. I think they score the most points, they're the most consistent, and I'm looking at this team and I'm not seeing
Robbie Anderson's fine. I'm fine with him, but everything else beyond him seems like a WR3 at best.
It seems like
Humphrey signed a big contract. He might show up, but he's in Tennessee. So,
Agreed. And like you said, if you want to start 4, I see maybe 1.
Yeah, I mean, I would start Robbie Anderson without a problem.
Yeah.
Kenny Stills has that potential. He could score a lot of touchdowns. He's in a Miami offense that doesn't have many targets. He could be the guy there. Cameron Meredith, I don't even know if he's on a team. I don't think he is. And if he is, he's buried enough that he's not.
Same thing I said about running backs. It applies tenfold at receiver. He needs one of these 3 young guys to see out the field a lot and start getting bodies.
And Equinemius, St. Brown, Hakeem Butler, and Miles Boykin are the 3 young guys.
I like Equinemius. He's in a crowd. I have, full transparency, I have Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It's a crowded, in a new system and a crowded receiving core.
Yep.
Hakeem Butler and Miles Boykin are very young, so.
Yep, they'll take a little bit too. And they're on teams with rookie quarterbacks, both of them. So they're also unknowns. And, the word on the street is that St. Brown is on the outside of that starting 3 in Green Bay.
But if you like Notre Dame, it's a good look.
It is, I guess he likes Notre Dame.
He's going heavy on Notre Dame.
Actually, he's a Michigan guy, which is kind of funny.
That's
What's
happening, James? That's not a good look. Tight end is his most powerful position, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's got a lot of, and he has a lot of potential.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. I guess, I think it is. You don't know, because Hunter Henry has all the hype in the world, but he hasn't seen the field almost at all. Gesicki and Herndon, great.
Yeah. And he gave up a lot of draft capital to get Herndon. He gave up a second in this upcoming draft, and coming last place if you're trading away a 2nd-round pick next year. A lot of people don't necessarily want to make that trade because it could be higher, but he's got that faith in Herndon. And Herndon, the word on the street is that the Jets are looking better every year. We live in New Jersey, so they're improving.
I think Herndon has a good value for the tight ends, but I think this might be the trade that he did for Herndon might be a slight overreaction to the punishment he had with Henry last year.
Yeah.
But it's fine to have that tight end depth, so I'm fine with it. It's not like a punishing decision. I actually like the move, but I would look at some of those other tight ends possibly moving on, maybe to upgrade for another piece, or to start to turn things around and just, if you're really going to go rebuild right now, get rid of some of these excess pieces while you can.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I kind of just noticed, a lot of Jets Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable starting that many Jets?
Yeah, that's a lot of Jets.
That's a lot of Jets.
Yeah, I mean,
you have your best player potentially. If you want Herndon to be your heir apparent, you're looking at their running back, their best receiver, and their best.
Well, and I don't know if he necessarily playing that because Bell wasn't a Jet when he had him.
Agreed.
On team.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
It is
to put on the Jets.
It is. Yeah, and they are going to be an improving offense. They will be better than they were last year. The good thing I like about his tight ends, Henry, Gesicki, Herndon. I think within 2 years, any of those guys could be in the top 5, or all of them could be in the top 5. I think they all have the talent, and they're on the teams that Hunter Henry's with
Hunter Henry. I may think if he goes top 5, like you're saying, with Gesicki and Herndon and their age, I might look to trade off
whoever hits
Henry.
first.
Even Henry would be the most obvious one. He would be worth so much as a win now piece if he was in rebuild mode. Phillip Rivers is 47 years old, 67, something like that.
Seems like that.
He's real old.
He has 80 kids now.
Yeah, and those they got to be putting a drain on him. You know what I mean? His body, his knees picking up all those children. So if Henry does hit, how big is Hunter Henry's window? They don't have an heir apparent for Phillip Rivers. So if you get a high value there and you are in rebuild mode, if you turn out you're in rebuild mode, Hunter Henry would be a piece, despite how good he is, to move on from.
Yeah.
So at D-line, he has Fletcher Cox, Geno Atkins, Jonathan Allen, Marcus Davenport, and Trey Flowers.
I mean, Trey Flowers is the best piece there. He's going to be starting all the time. Geno Atkins is not. He's other than Carlos Dunlap, he's defensive tackle, and they're double teaming him inside all the time. Yeah. And Fletcher Cox is getting old. You got to hope Jonathan Allen is putting up what they went out there to get him.
He should be looking to cut a couple of those.
Yeah. And it's interesting with Geno Atkins. I know in a couple IDP leagues, I've floundered with him at times on defensive line needy teams. He goes on, you drop him, you pick him off waivers way too much. So
he has a couple games with a couple sacks, and you're like, oh yeah.
And the talent is there, but he's awesome. For some reason, fantasy production is hard
inconsistent.
At times. But between out of these 5 guys, I would cut one of them, and I'm fine with him cutting either Jonathan Allen or Geno Atkins.
Yeah, I mean, I would cut Geno just because of the fact that you never know what you're going to get out of him. Yeah. On defense, I feel like you do want to know, I'm going to get this many points out of this guy. Geno Atkins is going to give you, every couple games, going to give you 10 points, and he's going to skew his number, his rank up. Yeah. But the other games, when he's getting double teamed, he's just going to get nothing. Yeah. Like he's a goose egg waiting to happen. And they've lost a couple pieces behind him that you're going to think teams are probably going to potentially stack the box and double team him plenty. So I don't know.
I mean, his D line's
it's
pretty
fine,
good. I'm fine
Trey
with
Flowers
his D-line.
is potentially a top 5 D end. I mean,
Davenport is so developmental, but he underperformed and he did decent last year.
Yeah.
It's fine. D line is fine.
Yeah. Linebackers, it looks like he needs a little help with.
Yeah, Tahir Whitehead's good. I actually don't dislike his linebackers. There's just nothing like super standout there.
Deion Jones looks pretty good. I'm happy with Deion Jones. The other 3, I need an LB2 to fall in here if I'm win now mode.
I'm just saying if you do Deion Jones and Tahir Whitehead, I think you're okay.
My concern comes from if I'm thinking about rebuilding or winning now, part of the reason is going to be because of my defense. If your defense across the board can be win now, I can lean towards trying to make something pay off and happen with my receivers. So if he can make some deal to get that second linebacker that he needs for the year, you're looking closer at a win now approach, even though it's very risky.
I agree with you. I think his defense on paper looks good. I think the biggest issue with the defense, at least in my opinion, is that it does look like it could have a lot of inconsistency. Like if players don't play up to their potential, if Trey Flowers got a contract and he's not good,
Tahir Whitehead's been hot and cold at times.
Tahir Whitehead's hot and cold, so all of a sudden if Deion Jones is your only viable option.
His defense is very average.
Like safety, you look at it and you go, okay, Budda Baker and Auckland Dix should be good.
I like that.
But
they're fine.
If Budda Baker doesn't come to form like people want him to, it might not be as good. So, and especially if those 3 things kind of snowball on you or domino and all 3 of your defensive positions are off, there's just not a lot of depth there to recover them.
Yeah. So what would you guys think about doing with this roster? Trev, we'll start with you.
I mean, overall, his defense is his offense is I mean, to me, this is a team that finishes between 5th and 10th place. With injuries, could fall into 11th, 12th place range. I mean, for me, looking at the team, I mean, he has his top assets that he has Le'Veon Bell, Josh Jacobs, which you're not going to trade because he just drafted, Damian Williams, Robbie Anderson, and his quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, James Winston. But the two big ones I'm looking at is Le'Veon Bell and Damian Williams, who's going to be the core of his team. 27-year-olds, 28-year-olds. They just got their contracts. Damian Williams is older than you think, even though he's kind of been around. You're not going to be getting production from those guys in 3 years, in 2 years maybe. So to me, it's a sell. I'm looking to sell Bell, trying to get something for him. He should snatch a good value. He should be able to get a couple picks, or some very good young talent. Damian Williams, I think you got to cash on it as well because he's gonna be a beast this year, but next year it's up in the air. I don't know. Depends how he performs. Depends how he holds up. So for me, I'm looking to move one or two of those quarterbacks. Probably hold on to Watson because he's young. Maybe hold on to Winston. But yeah, I'm selling. I'm
somewhere on the fence. I tend to agree with Trev, but I do think this could be give it the preseason, give it a couple weeks to see where there's a lot of pieces in here where you don't know what they're going to do. Like, I think you like Deshaun Watson, but you want to see Jameis in his new system. I think you like Le'Veon and some of those younger guys, but you want to see if they end up, and you want to see what Le'Veon does. You want to see if Josh Jacobs ends up in the starting lineup. Receivers are rough, but you want to see what does Robbie Anderson look like with 2 years under Sam Darnold.
Yep.
Do any of those young guys make a starting lineup? Tight ends, like I said, Hunter Henry, if he plays up to where he is, that's great. Defense, I think we're all on the same page in defenses. It's good. It could be good enough.
It's fine. Yeah.
So if you give it a couple weeks, think, can I improve upon this a little bit and contend? If not, you got to make a decision quick, though, in this season, where I would either, after a couple weeks, I would either sell exactly what Trev is saying and try to still get as much value as you can, or commit hard and trade off, maybe hope Winston plays well and you trade off him, get one more receiver, or trade off a guy like Hunter Henry and try to beef up that receiver core to compete solely on the fact that you might need a little bit of improvement, but you could compete. So I'm fence riding, but I would tend to say try to compete at least for a little bit.
So for me, there's a bunch of different contexts that take into this. To say you're going to win the league this year is very hard with Dane's team and with Betancourt's team being powerhouses. So if the goal is just to win this year, it's going to be hard to go for it.
Agreed.
But at the same time,
still fantasy football.
Just random stuff can happen. He's also playing in the weaker division in the league. I'm rebuilding. Dan, you're starting to significantly compete now, and
AJ
and AJ's in a rebuild of sorts. So he has a chance to win the division. So immediately he's going to be in the playoffs as long as he can get by Dan. But at the same time, I go,
he won't get by.
What can he do here if he's going to think about making a run? So what are the scenarios that have to unfold? First, he has to get like a 2-for-1 trade, something that's really going to help him. So I see it. Let's say I'm going to be James and I'm going to try and win with this team this year. I'm going to try and trade off Damian Williams at what I perceive as a sell high value right now and get a 2-for-1, get another running back and get a receiver, get a WR3 or a WR2 who you can start in your lineup. Next thing I'm going to look at doing is Jameis Winston seems to be highly valued by experts right now. So his value should be good enough to potentially deal him with a package of maybe Mike Gesicki or something else.
One of those receivers.
So that you can get a key receiver. So now you've gotten you've gained two pieces. You're not harming your starters, because if you're going to win this year, it's going to be because of Deshaun Watson, Le'Veon Bell, and Josh Jacobs. For some reason, booms out of nowhere. You might, if he starts seeing Josh Jacobs boom at the start of the season, you go, okay, I'm trying to win now.
Yeah.
Let me do it. You can sell your first round pick, claiming, hey, look, I was in last place last year. This is a top 3 pick. Potentially, but people might overvalue that first, trying to get it, so let them overpay for it. And even if you don't win, now you have a middle first that you might have gotten overpaid on to get another key piece. The other option is maybe you like Herndon over Hunter Henry, and maybe you get a king's ransom for Hunter Henry for somebody who's trying to compete right now, and you turn that over just like you were saying before. But then the big thing is you'll be able to fix up stuff on the defense on the cheap. So don't worry. Yeah. That's something you can turn around real easy.
If you're active on waivers for free agency.
So one of the things that I do think he has going for him is I do think this is a if you have faith in your guys, like if James likes his guys that he's drafted and has faith in his research and the guys that he chose, it would be you could potentially see this as a quick rebuild, because if you trust Dwayne Haskins and you like Jameis, you could part with Deshaun Watson and get a lot more than you would for those other guys.
Good point.
If you like your young receivers, you could part with Robbie Anderson and Honey Henry and get a lot of pieces back for those. So, like, you might be reeling this year, but if you trust, Josh Jacobs and you go, I'm going to have Le'Veon Bell, Josh Jacobs, I'll move Damian Williams. I like Equinemius, Hakeem Butler, and Miles Boykin. I'll move, maybe Kenny Stills or Robbie Anderson and Hunter Henry. You could get a lot of pieces for this and maybe not compete this year, but the turnaround could be quick if you did commit to a rebuild with this team, because there's so many guys that if they do hit, like Dwayne Haskins and Josh Jacobs and those receivers, you could be in really good shape quickly. That's the one thing with the rebuild.
And the other thing is, once you start the season, Kenny Stills comes out. Last year, his first week was like 2 touchdowns. Yeah. He had 2 huge weeks. Yeah. I remember trading him away in another league, and I got I don't remember who it was, but it was way more than what Kenny Stills ended up being worth.
We talked about, and that was the thing is, we talked about how good his quarterbacks were. And if Dwayne Haskins hits big, like everyone is raving about him in Washington, if Jameis hits and Deshaun, you can get a lot for those 2 quarterbacks potentially.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to turn with, which I think you could get a lot of pieces. You could compete this year. It could be a fun rebuild. Like it seems like there's a lot of stuff here to work with if you wanted to rebuild.
And if there can be quick gains in the receiver position, that can dictate a lot. If he can attempt to compete this year without dealing off his first next year, I think that's an automatic move.
Yeah.
But if you have to deal off the first 8, you have to be definitively going to the playoffs and get that last piece or 2.
Agreed. His team is very interesting compared to a lot of the teams. It's probably one of the most on the fence.
For somebody who finished last place, this is not a roster that looks like finished last place last year.
I think you could have fun either way, which is a very good thing. Like if you wanted to compete, like you could go for it. You could make a run at it. But if you wanted to rebuild, I actually think this looks like a really fun roster to work with.
It could go either way. I mean, to me, there just isn't enough in it to try and win this year. To me, I don't think he has the pieces. A lot of the guys. I mean, some of these guys, Adam Humphries, Kenny Stills, they could work out. Miles Boykin, they could work out, but I just don't see it.
My first instinct is to agree with you, just because of the upper echelon of people in our league. Like that top tier of teams is very good.
Conservative approach is definitely a rebuild.
So if you rebuild, you can kind of wait for those teams to fade as you rebuild your roster. So I would agree with you, but there's no reason to think you couldn't go make a run at it with this, especially like Jim said, it's fantasy football. Dwayne Haskins is amazing. Oh my God, Josh Jacobs in their starting lineup. All of a sudden you've got the pieces.
Right.
The biggest issue would be receivers, just figuring out where you got to get a piece there if you want to compete. The other positions I can reason out going, I'm okay here and I can make this work, especially with waiver wire. The receiver, if you wanted to compete this year, if James wanted to compete this year, he's got to address receiver somehow before the season even starts.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, if Ronald Jones hits, this thing could just turn around real quick.
That's what I mean. Is it's
true.
It's funny. It's Ronald Jones is like the
key linchpin of whether he's gonna.
But that is still going back to receiver. If say that stuff all does fall into place,
he still needs to add.
You still need a receiver. Yeah. There's no number one. 2. There's potentially no number 2.
Yeah.
You need a receiver.
He'll pick up some guys off waivers, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. This one's a coin flip. You could do whatever you wanted.
Thank you, everyone, for cutting down your rosters in time to get players added. Just before August, when we're going to start waivers, I'll make a post on Facebook. Hopefully, I will not make an error again for the 3rd year in a row. Probably won't.